Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Janaballabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janaballabha Jaya Gopi Janaballabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gora Bhaktivedanta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Advaita Gadadhar Gora Bhaktivedanta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gora Bhaktivedanta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gora Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Vishnu Bhāgavatam Brahmamsa Prabhupada-Acharya Ashtotra Shri Śrīmad Bhāgavatam A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Prem se ko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudhi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki Nithai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 5, Chapter number 14, The Forest of Enjoyment, Text number 26. So a series of verses. This chapter are proses. So I'll just read the Sanskrit and we'll go to the word for word. Kvachin mitho vevaharan yat kinchid dhanam anyebhyo va kang kinika matram api apaharan yat kinchid va vidvesham eti vitashatyat. Word for word, please. Kvachit. Sometimes. Mitaha. With one another. Vyavaharan. Trading. Yad kinchit. Whatever little bit. Dhanam. Money. Anyebhya. From others. Va. Or. Kakinka matram. A very small amount. 20 kauris. Api. Certainly. Apaharan. Taking away by cheating. Yat kinchit. Whatever small amount. Va. Or. Vidvesham eti. Creates enmity. Vita shatyat. Because of cheating. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. As far as transactions with money are concerned, if one person cheats another by a farthing or less, they become enemies. Word for word, please. As far as transactions with money are concerned, if one person cheats another by a farthing or less, they become enemies. Purport. This is called samsara davanala. Sorry, this is purport now. This is called samsara davanala. Even in ordinary transactions between two people, there is invariably cheating because the conditioned soul is defective in 4 ways. He is illusioned, he commits mistakes, his knowledge is imperfect, and he has a propensity to cheat. Unless one is liberated from material conditioning, these 4 defects must be there. Consequently, every man has a cheating propensity which is employed in business or money transactions. Although 2 friends may be living peacefully together, due to their propensity to cheat, they become enemies when there is a transaction between them. A philosopher accuses an economist of being a cheater, and an economist may accuse a philosopher of being a cheater when he comes in contact with money. In any case, this is the condition of material life. One may profess a high philosophy, but when one is in need of money, he becomes a cheater. In this material world, so-called scientists, philosophers, and economists are nothing but cheaters in one way or another. The scientists are cheaters because they present so many bogus things in the name of science. They propose going to the moon, but actually they end up cheating the entire public of large sums of money for the experiments. They cannot do anything useful. Unless one can find a person transcendental to the 4 basic defects, one should not accept advice and become a victim of the material condition. The best process is to take the advice and instructions of Sri Krishna or his bona fide representative. In this way, one can be happy in this life and the next. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmildamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This material world is a place of the cheaters and the cheated. In Sanskrit, the mentality of cheating is called vipralipsa. Vipralipsa is the mentality of cheating. So, anyone who is in the material world, all of us, we have 4 basic defects. Any living entity in the material world. The propensity to cheat, vipralipsa, tendency to commit mistakes, tendency to be illusioned, and what's the 4th one? Make mistakes, illusioned, cheat. And the senses are imperfect. Thank you. So we have these 4 basic defects. Everyone has these defects in the material world. And that's what it means to have a material body. And so why do we have this propensity to deceive or cheat? So cheat means basically to gain an unfair advantage over someone else by using maybe some deceptive methods. So we have this propensity because we want to enjoy in this world. Like this chapter is called The Forest of Enjoyment. So this material world is compared to a forest. Forests generally are dangerous places. Not so much the Australian forests. The Australian bush is not so dangerous, except for the bushfires. Unless you get caught in a bushfire, then it's very dangerous. But generally speaking, there's not so much wildlife in the forest, or at least very harmful wildlife. But if you go to like forests in India, if whatever's left, they can be dangerous places because there's wildlife, tigers or lions or very ferocious animals who are out there to make you their lunch or dinner. So in the same way, in this material world is like a forest because there are so many adversaries in this world, and we are going about our daily business, but there are people who are trying to exploit us. And in the same way, we are also trying to exploit others. So that's why we come in the material world of this propensity to exploit others. This is the tendency of the living entity. So this is we have come here to exploit the resources of nature. Like Krishna says in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Aparayam itastavanyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhuta mahabhaho yayedham dharayate jagat. That this superior energy of mind, the living entity, has come in the material world to exploit the resources of nature. So everyone is trying to exploit the resources of nature. And people do it in very fancy ways and with very sophisticated ways, and use sophisticated words to cover up their exploitation. But if you strip away all the sophistication, it's just exploitation. Different countries are trying to exploit each other, and we are literally exploiting the resources. Like in Australia, it's about mining. The economy is built on mining. So we are literally exploiting, taking resources out of the earth to use for sense gratification. And when someone says, I love you, in the material world, there's no love. It is only calm, lust. So Krishna talks about calm in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And even Arjuna, he says, what is this enemy that covers us? And Krishna says this enemy is calm, is lust, which everyone is blinded by it. And it resides in the body in various locations. So this material world is a place of lust. So when someone says, I love you, what they're really saying is, I want to exploit you. And, maybe we've also said I love you, right? To our beloved in the past. But that love is based on, what can you do for me? Otherwise, there is dissent. So there's so many songs written on this love. You turn on the radio, 101.1 FM or the Fox, whatever. There's so many songs on love. And these songs have been made since time immemorial. They've been songs made on love. But if you strip it, it is saying, I want to lust you, or I'm lusting over you, or I want to exploit you. And then sooner or later, because we all are so tiny living entities, we are so tiny and we are part and parcel of Krishna, it is only Krishna who can truly fulfill our desires. And Krishna is Rishikesh, is the master of the senses. And Krishna has the ability to fulfill all of his desires and all of everyone else's desires. Krishna can do that because that's what makes him God. So Krishna has unlimited potencies, and through those potencies, Krishna can fulfill all of his desires, and Krishna has unlimited desires. So I've heard my spiritual master say various times that we can only have limited desires. If we boil down all our desires, they come to maybe 7, 8, 9, or 10. We cannot have unlimited desires like Krishna has. So, and even with those desires, we are struggling to fulfill them. And we build various alliances and relationships with people in order to try to fulfill our desires by trying to exploit them. And the relationship of a man and a woman is basically based on, what can you do for me? That's how we approach each other. There's the alliance of marriage, or these days it's called partnership, like a business partnership. In a business partnership, the terms are defined. You have to bring this to the table, I will bring this to the table, and then we'll try to make it work. And when the terms are not met, the partnership is ended. So there's even an entity type called partnership. There's individuals, partnerships, there's trusts, right? So there's partnerships. So in partnerships, man and woman come together, and man has certain conceptions of enjoyment, and the woman has certain conceptions. So they try to come together to enjoy. But because if it is devoid of any Krishna consciousness, what they're really trying to do is they're trying to exploit each other, but in the process they get frustrated. So that's what happens when we try to exploit nature. When the tiny living entity tries to exploit the material energy, our attempts at exploitation become frustrated. And so whether it is man or woman coming together, or it is doing various alliances, different partnerships with people, in due course of time we get frustrated. Because the other person cannot fulfill us, because they are so tiny. They do not have the capacity to fulfill us. It's only Krishna who is our Lord, and master can fulfill our desires. And Krishna only fulfills our spiritual desires. Our material desires, Krishna has, unwillingly agreed to put us in the material world to let us fulfill our desires. Because we have this stubborn nature, our stubborn desire is to be independent of Krishna, and then Krishna has put us in the material world. So where we can try to be the master and try to be happy, independent of Krishna. So Krishna has unwillingly put us here in order to frustrate us so that we can turn back to Him. That's why Krishna has put us in this material world. So we can try to play God. Everyone in this world is trying to be the master. And that's why Prabhupada uses the term lording it over nature again and again in the material world. Because everyone is trying to control others. So to be God means to be the supreme controller. Because if you can't control, then you can't be the enjoyer. So people are trying to control so they can have a level of enjoyment. And that's why positions of controllership or directorship are very attractive in the material world. Everyone wants to be a director, a CEO or a boss, or even if you're not a boss, we are trying to boss others. Even if you don't have the title of a manager. But everyone is trying to be a chief and trying to boss others around. Because in that way we can feel a sense of enjoyment. But the material world is meant to frustrate us so we can turn back to Krishna. That's the purpose of Maya Devi. So the material energy, which is the matter, which is also Krishna's energy. Krishna says, I have two types of energies. I have the Yoga Maya and the Mahamaya. So the Yoga Maya is Krishna's internal energy, and it gives us opportunities to serve Krishna. So when we turn towards Krishna, then the Yoga Maya gives us various facilities to serve Krishna. If we have that desire, if we have a desire to serve Krishna, it gets fulfilled. Krishna fulfills our desires to serve Him. But if we have material desires, then we are handed over to Mahamaya. And then Mahamaya takes care of us. By maybe giving us sometimes some success, and we get carried over by their success, and then we get a big slap. And again we get frustrated. And that's how the material world is by nature, by design, it is there to frustrate us. And we are trying to overcome that design. We are so tiny, but out of stubbornness, we are trying to overcome the design of material nature, which is there to frustrate us. And as we turn to Krishna, Krishna tries to fulfill our desires, but still the material energy is there to test us to see if we are sincere or not. So the other job of the illusory energy is to test our sincerity. Like Hare Thakur is the Acharya. He was tested in the dead of the night when a beautiful prostitute came and offered her services to him. So ordinarily, anyone would fall down. But Haridas Thakur, he was so fixed in chanting the holy names of the Lord that that Maya Devi herself, who appeared as a prostitute, she was transformed. So in this way, Maya is there to test us. When we turn towards Krishna, the demigods are happy, we have turned to Krishna, and we get various facilities, but at the same time we are tested thoroughly by various temptations are put in front of us to test our sincerity in going back to Godhead. And so sometimes we might fall down, but then we have to get up and continue towards our march towards back to Godhead. So we are always tempted by the illusory energy. But if we overcome these temptations, then we are coming closer and closer to Krishna. So those temptations are there to make us stronger in our as a devotee. So we might be tempted with money or position or by various opportunities to enjoy in different ways or control. But if they're not done keeping Krishna's service in mind, then we'll fall victim to the illusory energy. But if we keep Krishna in the center, then we come out stronger. There's a saying, failure is a pillar of success. So these temptations are there to make us stronger. But if we put Krishna in the center of our dealings, then these cheating propensities go away. So vipralipsa is the propensity of cheating, as I mentioned, is there because of the tendency to enjoy, exploit. Prabhupada also talks about it. In the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, in the first canto, 14th chapter, text number 4, in the purport, he says, a conditioned living being is endowed with the 4 principles of malpractice, namely errors, insanity, inability, and cheating. These are signs of imperfection. And out of the 4, the propensity to cheat others is most prominent. And this cheating practice is there in the conditioned souls because the conditioned souls are primarily in the material world, imbued with an unnatural desire to lord it over the material world. So this is the root cause. And so we all have this propensity. And of course there has to be oversight. So we just can't be left to our own whims, even though we are devotees. So there needs to be a level of governance and oversight in order to avoid this propensity to cheat. Otherwise, it can manifest at any moment, even amongst us as spiritual practitioners. Just because we put on a dhoti, kurta, tilak doesn't mean we don't have the propensity. We all have it. So we have to try to be pure, but at the same time, there has to be a level of oversight to curb that tendency. And ultimately, this propensity is there because everything emanates from Krishna, right? So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, among cheats, I am gambling, right? So Krishna also cheats sometimes. And Krishna is the supreme truth, Param Satyam Dhimahi. Krishna is the absolute truth. And whatever Krishna does is perfect. And Krishna's cheating is transcendental. Whereas our cheating is not transcendental. It is entangling. So this famous pastime of Krishna telling Yudhishthir to lie to Dronacharya, to cheat Dronacharya. So Dronacharya is, he was the teacher, Acharya of Arjun, the Pandavas. And so Dronacharya was on the side of the Kauravas. And Dronacharya is a great noble person. Somehow he came on the side of the Kauravas due to financial considerations and other reasons. And then he was a great threat to the Pandavas. And he got so carried away by the propensity to fight. And so generally in Vedic warfare, or in the days of yore, as even Devamrit Swami was mentioning 1 or 2 weeks ago, that there were certain codes of conduct when warfare would take place. Once the sun has set, you do not fight. And you only fight with someone who is your equal and who has a similar weapon system as you have. This is Vedic warfare. And it is done outside the kingdom. It is done in an isolated, deserted area. Like Maharaj was mentioning about, giving the example of Kurukshetra. So Kurukshetra is a battle place, and it was far away from a city where people were residing. It was just maybe out in the bush. And if you want to do a battle, go in the bush, in the desert, and then fight over there. But modern warfare is the exact opposite. In fact, they use the night time to carry out their bombing campaign. So you can catch the opposing party by surprise. They use the element of surprise to bomb them. And modern warfare is all about gaining military superiority over your opponent by having very powerful weapons that your opposing party doesn't have it, right? So to have maybe superior fighter jets than your opposition, or to have nuclear weapons. But in Vedic warfare, if you're fighting with a bow and arrow, then your opposition should also have that. And they should be skilled in fighting in a bow and arrow. Then you fight them. So if you have higher weapons than them, and then they don't have, then you fight with someone else. That's how the battle was carried out. So we can see how today's warfare is the exact opposite, and it is carried out. The warfare is carried out in the midst of the citizens. Like we're looking in the Israel and Palestinian conflict at the moment. It is taking place right in the midst of citizens. Hamas is firing rockets indiscriminately in Israel at the citizens, and then they're firing back too. And even worse, sometimes the enemy is hiding in a hospital or somewhere else, so they have to bomb that place. So this is Kali Yuga fighting. But before it wasn't like that. They would go in a deserted location, and they would fight equally. And at sunset, the fighting would stop. So the warriors have time to recuperate, patch their wounds, have a drink, eat something, rest. Then next day again, there's fighting. So Dronacharya, in the battle of, in Mahabharata, in the battle of Kurukshetra, so he was made, Dronacharya was made the commander-in-chief. So when Bhishma was lying on a bed of arrows, so he was the commander-in-chief, and he fought. He became infuriated, and he fought, and he broke many of these military codes. So he was fighting people who were inferior to him, maybe had lower grade weapons, and he was killing them indiscriminately. And even at sunset, Dronacharya, he kept fighting. So when he smelled the stench of the wounds from the soldiers and the smell of blood, it inflamed his passion to fight. And he kept fighting throughout the night. And so this had to be stopped. And then, but Dronacharya, he knew no one can defeat him. So the only way to defeat him was to say that his son has been killed. That was the only way to sap his enthusiasm to fight. But his son Ashwatthama had a benediction that he can't be killed. He had a benediction by Lord Shiva. So then Krishna told Yudhishthir, you go and tell Dronacharya that your son Ashwatthama has died. Because if anyone else says, Dronacharya won't believe them. Because Ashwatthama has this benediction that he can't be killed. He has this benediction by Lord Shiva. So Yudhishthir is Dharmaraj. Yudhishthir has never said a lie in his whole life. He has never carried out any immoral act or even thought of it. So if he says Ashwatthama has died, then it will be believed. And Yudhishthir, when he was cheated by Shakuni, so he even surrendered Draupadi, he surrendered his brothers, he surrendered his kingdom, and then he even accepted going into exile for such a long time. So they knew if Yudhishthir says, then it carries weight. So Krishna told Yudhishthir, you go and cheat Dronacharya by lying to him. But Yudhishthir was very hesitant. So because Yudhishthir had never lied his whole life, he had gained so much power that his chariot would never touch the ground. Would always was levitating. But after this incident, his chariot came down. And the Acharyas explained that's because he hesitated to lie, not because he said that, because he hesitated to lie. So Yudhishthir was really hesitating to go to Drona and say Ashwatthama is dead, because he knew this is lying. So he was really hesitating. So as a compromise, Krishna said, okay, there is an elephant called Ashwatthama. Bhima, you go and kill him. And that elephant was on their side. Was one of the Pandavas' elephants. So the elephant was killed by Bhima. And then he said, okay, now Yudhishthir, you go and say, Ashwatthama, the elephant is dead. So he hesitated, but he went there. He went to, before that, even some people told Dronacharya that Ashwatthama is dead, but he didn't believe them. He said, I'll only believe when Yudhishthir says. And I think even Bhima had told him that Ashwatthama is dead, but Drona didn't believe him. So then Yudhishthir went and he said, Ashwatthama, the elephant, is dead. And as he said the elephant, Krishna blew the conch. So Drona, he only heard that Ashwatthama is dead. So Krishna, he tricked Dronacharya. We see even the Supreme Lord sometimes engages like this. But Krishna is beyond reproach. Krishna is the absolute truth. So his activities are transcendental. And then when Dronacharya heard that, he lost his vitality, he lost his mojo and enthusiasm to fight. And then, as you know, Drishtadyumna, he killed Dronacharya. So Dronacharya, he just sat in meditation. He resigned from his commander-in-chief post. He sat in meditation, and Drishtadyumna came and Drishtadyumna chopped his head off, right? So in this way, Dronacharya was killed. So yeah, Krishna did that. And there's various other examples also of Krishna cheating. But Krishna can cheat, but Krishna can do these activities. And we also know Dronacharya was not right as well. We have the example of Sanatana Goswami. I gave this last time. I think, class 2 times ago. When Sanatana Goswami was imprisoned, he bribed the jailkeeper with some gold, and he said, I'm going to Makkah. Let me out. I want to go to Makkah. That's why he let me out of jail. But he went to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he cheated the jailkeeper. So ordinarily in our transactions, we have to be, at least with devotees, we have to be, act in gentleman ways and not cheat each other or say things that we don't mean to say that, but comes out another way. In the short term, we might get what we want, but in the long term, it'll destroy the trust and damage our relationships. Also, in Bhagavad Gita, the Vaishyas by occupation, they have to cheat, they have to lie. if they don't lie, then they cannot be a Vaishya. Like they say, with you I'm making no money. But they have a margin. If there's no margin, why will they be in business? So sometimes, it is in their occupational duty to engage in that way. So those were some examples of Krishna engaging like that. That was a pastime. So do you have any comments or questions on what we spoke today? Yes, Prabhu. Your voice is loud.
Thank you very much for a very nice class, Mandir. You said that there is no love in the material world. Are you sure it is absolutely true or no? I will give you example. Mother's love, pure. Radharani's love, purest. So how can you say that? Thank you very much. We cannot say anything, statement that material love, there is a lot of love. If there is a relationship between mother and son or daughter, the material can't exist. So, like I'll give you my example. I was only 4 or 5-year-old boy, and my mother said, she said exactly same word I was saying. Punrapi janini yatre shenam trai murare. If you don't, you can become a dog. Dog.
So I'll respond to that. Yes, Radharani's love. So question is, how can I say that there is no love in the material world? And so Prabhu gave an example of a mother's unconditional love. So he's giving it. The quotation? Translation.
Translation is, we have to come in material world again and again, unless we become a devotee of Lord.
I think that is from, if I'm not mistaken, it's from
This is
Founder-Acharya's verse. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jatate shayanam. Iha samsare bahudustare, kripalapare, pathmurare.
exactly.
Majagovindam, Majagovindam. It is from that.
Mm.
Come to this material world again and again.
Mm.
In some form.
Yeah, so the Shastra says there's no love in the material world. It's true, as I was saying before, that material world is based on the principle of lust. It is based on exploitation. And even Krishna says in the Gita that the spirit soul is here to exploit the resources of nature. So you have given the example of a mother's unconditional love. Yes, that is Prabhupada says the mother's unconditional love is the closest to love of God. Yes, there is love between a mother and a child. But generally we have, the mother has a child, or the parents want kids to fulfill a need, right? Because there is a sense of lacking. There's something missing. So we have a child to fulfill our desires. So it is not pure. So that love is not pure. It's not 100% pure. Yes, there is love there. Love means to serve someone without expecting anything in return, right? That's the definition of love. And so pure love can only exist between Krishna, because the service to Krishna has to be unmotivated and should not cease. So the love between a mother and a son, or the parents, there is some motivation there. It is not pure. So I'll give you an example, parents, they send their, in our context, they've sent us to Australia. Or if you become a brahmachari, or if you join the ashram, what happens? They say, we sent you to Australia to make money and to increase our name and fame and send some money back. Or at least increase our name and fame, right? In the family. Or you've gone there in Melbourne Uni or Oxford University. So there is prestige associated with the upbringing of your children. The parents have certain expectations. So it is not unconditional. There are expectations tied to the kids. They have to go to a certain Melbourne grammar or good school to increase the prestige of the parents. And if you give all of that up, if you join the ashram, then they get upset. And in some examples, they abandon you, or they treat you unfairly. So the love in the material world is not pure. Yes, there is. That's why it's called lust. To be, strictly speaking. So yes, there is service in the material world. We by nature serve others, but that service is mixed with an agenda. Everyone has some agenda. That's why we serve someone. We go to work because there's an agenda. We want to get money so we can enjoy, have sense gratification. Yes, Prabhu. The quotation of his mother encouraging him to be a devotee? Yeah, so that is true love. Yeah, exactly. Because that is a pure desire. And they're engaging you in Krishna service. And that's what Grihastha ashram is about. And that's what parenting is about. And as it's said in the Bhagavatam also that do not become a guru or a parent if you cannot deliver your sibling from the cycle of birth and death. So that's what parenting is about, to make your child a devotee, to try to make them, but ultimately it's their free will. They might not choose to, and you can't do anything about that. You have to respect it. But so yeah, if the mother encouraging you to become a devotee, that is pure love. Thanks, bro. Yeah. It's a transcendental desire. Prabhuji. Yeah.
So mothers give the pure love, but the children are exploiting mother's love only. Children are exploiting mother's love only. We don't give back what mother gave us. So in that way, it's not pure love which you're saying. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, so as I explained before, in the material world there's no pure love. But yes, we don't. Yeah, if you're not a good child, then you're not reciprocating your mother's love properly. So one should reciprocate with one's mother by respecting, and the best way to reciprocate is to engage in Krishna service and to engage your family also in Krishna service. That's the best way to engage your parents. It's the best way to reciprocate with them. Is to try to make them devotee, if they, or to try to bring them closer to Krishna by maybe giving them prasadam, or just being a nice devotee, setting a nice example of a devotee, and by your influence, them slowly changing. And that is the best way to reciprocate. Of course, we also have to take care of our parents, their bodily needs as well. So as a son or daughter, one has to take care of their needs and look after them. So they're well looked after.
I was just thinking of some examples from
Yeah, I won't say he has a cheating propensity, but for Krishna's service, he tricked them. You know, if you have to do business, you have to be shrewd. If you're not shrewd, then you'll be exploited. That's it. That's how the world is. So Prabhupada was very expert in material dealings, and he knew how to use that, negotiate for Krishna, for Krishna's favor. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's an example, good example. Yeah. You have already asked, Prabhu. We'll see if anyone else has. Give everyone a chance. Okay, they're inspiring towards materialism, or they're pushing. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like, so question is, how do you deal with your parents if they're pushing you to become materially successful and you want to be spiritually successful? So like when I came to Australia, I came in touch with Krishna consciousness, and I wanted to be a brahmachari, and then I became, and my parents were very upset. I remember that. And they were saying, what are you doing? You joined the ashram. Why do you want to do that? Why can't you just be a grihastha and be a devotee? So, so what can you do? It's you have to be fixed in your service to Krishna, because you know what's best for you. They don't know what's best for you. They are misled. They are just going by the stories which other people have told them and society has told them, how to be, what is success looks like for. So we have to be convinced of what success is. So for success for a devotee is to be Krishna conscious and to please Krishna, and to live in the association of devotees. So if we do that, so we have to be fixed in that, and then we just have to tolerate the parents and be respectful, and not compromise our principles. So we have to engage in that way, be respectful, set a good example, and then hopefully they will slowly change. Yes, Prabhu.
It's an interesting, there's a conception that spiritual life means material loss.
Mm.
That's its conception. And that was the issue that Hare Prabhupada was facing when he wanted to remain a renunciate, and Swami needed him to for the family. But, you know, we can explain to people that this is just a stage, and usually most people will become householders anyway. And then as a householder, like, another example is Raghunath Das. You know, he was encouraged by Lord Chaitanya. And Lord, you know, he was encouraged. He wanted to be renounced, right? But he was encouraged even by Lord Chaitanya. At least while you're a family man, do your family responsibilities, right? The spiritual life doesn't, you know, we think, or it's a misconception, spiritual life means just throw away everything material. But the Bhagavatam teaches us that actually things material used in Krishna's service are not material anymore. They're actually spiritual. And that's a finer or even a subtle point of our philosophy, is that using things properly in Krishna's service and according to your ashram, right, and your occupation, if you do it in a balanced way, then you can demonstrate to everybody that you can make spiritual progress and also make material progress, and the two are not mutually exclusive. But that requires quite a good deal of maturity in the mind and intellect of the devotee, right? And to be able to explain that to others, especially your family, because, you know, your family will have their expectations, but we've got to explain them. Just because I'm chanting Hare Krishna doesn't mean, you know, that I'm not pursuing my responsibilities or that I can't make money. Right? I mean, most of my friends, how many investment properties do my friends have, each one of them? Right? At least one, and possibly more. More often than not, more. Plus I've got a house in Albert Park, so how can the family complain? They just complain because they don't like the fact that you've taken the spiritual life, or they don't like ISKCON, or they don't like Krishna. Right? Very often they're envious of Krishna because, you know, you're giving your life to spiritual pursuit. And you have to live with that, or explain to them, or just be nice to them, such that they'll become more understanding. Right?
What's the best way to juggle between both then? How do you balance that? How do you balance the spiritual and also material?
When we work with that, we'll let you know.
What do you say?
What's the best way to balance it? Because everybody's either.
No, I didn't hear Prabhu's response.
What's the.
I just said, where we work with that, we'll let you know.
You do let me know.
What do you think? How do you do it?
Well, first,
Like, I'm just asking because
yeah,
obviously you guys are devotees. So I'm not really a devotee. It's my first time coming here.
yep,
So,
yep.
yeah, just.
Well, first you need to know what spiritual is and what Krishna consciousness is. So first, even if we don't know that, how can we even begin to balance? So that's the first step, to understand Krishna and to understand the spiritual lifestyle and to start practicing it. And when we start practicing it, gradually we will get the intelligence, and by associating with other devotees who have successfully done it, we will learn the practical ways how to strike that balance.
Sadhana. You know what sadhana means? One of the first things that struck me when I met the devotees on the street selling books was they had a practice. Sadhana basically means practice. And so they had activities that you could add to your life that provide spiritual
diet.
Diet. So association, books, chanting and diet.
So as Prabhu said, as Prabhu summed it up, so you have to engage in sadhana. So sadhana means practice. So you have to practice being in the... You have to start being in the association of devotees, and then humbly listening. So, listening to the Shastra, listening Bhagavad Katha, and also reading it. And then also to have prasadam, because we have to eat. So to what we eat, we have to offer it. In fact, make our life as an offering as well. Whatever we are doing, we do it for Krishna. So it's a practice, and practice takes time. It doesn't happen in one day. So as Prabhu was mentioning, sadhana means you have to do it repeatedly. So if you get good at something when you do it repeatedly. So when we do it repeatedly, that's why sadhana means to do these activities every day. Then we will automatically see. We'll begin to prioritize what's important for us. Because at this point, it's a prioritization problem. We cannot prioritize what is in our best interest. We are engaged in other activities. And we give them a higher priority than our Krishna conscious development. But as Prabhu was saying, if we have good sadhana, then we will automatically prioritize these activities. And that doesn't mean we have to give up working. Then in fact, working and business and all those affairs are to support our spiritual practice. They become pillars to support us. Because you have to pay your bills, you have to live, you have a mortgage maybe, you have a family.
Those necessities as well. While juggling with the spiritual side.
One of the most important things is getting up early in the morning, because most of us have got a full day, from 7 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock at night at least, and some people till 10 o'clock at night. But they're working hard. So one of the most important elements of bhakti practice is getting up earlier so that we can put in an hour or two of activities that nourish our spirituality, our spiritual identity. Because at the moment we're working, like asses. Or we're working hard. And so it's hard to look at how do I fit in anything to my life. So and getting up early, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning for some people, 2 or 3 hours that you can dedicate just to chanting, to studying, to puja, then that nourishes your spiritual identity. And so that's what sadhana really means, as Nanda pointed out. And so, Nanda, what time do you go to work in the morning?
Usually start by 8,
Right.
8,
When you finish?
4:30.
Right. What time do you start your morning program?
5:30.
And what do you do?
Chant.
Chant. Yeah, so that's the first thing that most devotees add is get up an hour earlier or a couple of hours earlier and just sit down and chant. And that's the best time to do it anyway, because there's no distraction. As soon as the sun comes up, then your mind's just full of got to do this, got to do that. Right? So that's why in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna recommends that one should rise early to perform one's spiritual practice. And that's the best time of the day to do it. So that's where you kind of start.
Yeah, and if the sadhana is good, then we will be able to balance. We'll have the intelligence to know how to balance. Otherwise, the material ambitions, they consume us. Yeah. Thank you. That's a good point. All right. It's 9 o'clock.